Lillahi ta'ala, have the good intentions. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we're going to start going over the 73rd sect, which is the sect of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. The author, Abu al-Muzaffar, first thing he wants to talk about Ahlul Sunnah is the conviction of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And then he wants to talk about their feats. That means their accomplishments and the things that give them the bragging rights. Al-Mafakhir. So first he's going to talk about their convictions. Then he's going to talk about different pieces of evidence that prove that Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah is indeed the saved sect. And then he's going to talk about their merits. Okay, tayyib. So now we have a lot to cover when it comes to the convictions. He has many points. It might take us 3 or 4 sessions to cover the convictions of Ahlul Sunnah here, or maybe even more. So, not to mention that the author here, let's say that he's not treating us like we're dummies. He's not going to talk to us as if we have a lack of comprehension. So please pay attention, insha'Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So the author, he says that the first section is in clarifying the convictions of the people of the Sunnah and the majority, Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the sound conviction of the people of the Sunnah. Their convictions are clear of all the strayings that we have mentioned in all of the lessons that we gave, covering all these different sects and cults. And that conviction of Ahlul Sunnah is, 1, that you know that the world, with all of its components and all of its bodies and what it contains of the various types of plants and living creatures and all of the actions and all of the sayings and all of the convictions entirely, without exception, every one of them is created, and it came forth with a beginning for its existence. It is an event that occurred after it was nothing whatsoever. It was not any individual, and it was not any self, and it was not any particle, and it was not any quality. Yani anything that exists in this world, anything that's created, anything other than God, it has a beginning. That's the Muslim belief. And the evidence for the createdness of all of those things, or if you want the argument for the createdness of all of those things, is that they change. Their qualities change. They go from one situation to another. They would be having a circumstance, and then they would exit that circumstance and enter into a new circumstance. And what change really means, when we say these things change, or at the least they accept change, what change really means is for one situation or circumstance to vanish and for another to occur. So someone might try to argue that change itself is eternal. And that's impossible, of course. A thing that changes, it has a situation at first. So the thing that changes, it has its first situation. How do you know that it has its first situation, the thing that changes, that it has its initial circumstances? How do you know? How do we know that? It's known by necessity, and it's known by observation. That a thing comes into existence having some qualities God brings things forth into being. For example, the instant that it comes into existence, it might come into existence moving instantly. From the instant it comes into existence, it could be that Allah created something, and from the instant it came into existence, it was in motion. Or from the instant it came into existence, it was still, for example. So, the fact that something has an initial circumstance is necessary, it has to be. That actually doesn't even require any inference. And it's not valid to say that the change that took place in a changing thing was eternal and existing inside that changing thing in its body, and then it just came out to the outside, so it was always there. That's not valid, because attributes don't transfer. Change is an attribute, and attributes don't transfer. What does that mean? Yanni, what does it mean attributes don't transfer? It means, for example, like the color of my skin. Would it leave my skin and go to someone else? No. So attributes don't transfer. Attributes don't transfer. My knowledge, does it leave me and go to someone else? No, it does not. So the change, it can't be said that the change that existed in a changing thing was already in it and it just came out to the outside, because attributes don't transfer and they don't move. And what about the initial circumstance that the changing thing had? Well, if that changing thing were eternal without a beginning, it would have never changed. Its initial circumstance would have never vanished, because what's eternal does not change. So the fact that a thing would have an initial circumstance, and then that initial circumstance or situation would vanish, and then it takes on new circumstances, that change is the proof of the createdness of what changes. Because the one who's eternal does not change. The one who's eternal does not change, because the one who's eternal is the one with the necessary existence. The necessary existence. So the necessary existence means that it has to be. It can't change, or else it wouldn't be necessary. So the one who's eternal has the necessary existence. If his existence is necessary, then it doesn't change. So then it wouldn't be possible that the eternal one with the necessary existence goes from state to state. Had the necessary one with the eternal existence gone from state to state, then he wouldn't have been necessary. Actually, it would have only been possible. Because when you go from one state to another state, that means that you're not necessary. That first state wasn't necessary, or else it wouldn't have gone away. So whatever goes from state to state is merely a possibility. So had the eternal one with the necessary existence changed, then he would actually be merely a possibility, and his existence wouldn't be necessary. So whatever was necessarily existing would not become a mere possibility. Just like whatever was a mere possibility could not necessarily exist. Because those are two contrary attributes. Existing necessarily and existing possibly are two contrary attributes. So whatever has a necessary existence wouldn't become a possibility only, and whatever is a mere possibility wouldn't graduate to being a necessary existence. So we're saying all of that to say what? To say that everything other than Allah, the Muslim creed, is that everything other than God is a creation. The rational argument that it is created lies in the fact that it changes or is susceptible to change, is accepting of change. And what we have done now is talk about the reality of what change means. So, if it is settled that the attributes of bodies are created, then it is settled, it is confirmed that the bodies themselves are created. We learned that before. Anything that has a created attribute is itself created. Because, and this is an important rule here, a rule for that you use to prove that the world is created. The statement, the scholar said, whatever is not devoid of occurrences, events, whatever is not devoid of events, is not devoid of occurrences, whatever is not devoid of that, like what? Like, for example, my pen here. So it's not devoid of occurrences because right now it's cool. It's this metallic pen I have in my hand. It's cool now because it's been sitting out. But if I hold it in my hand long enough, it will become warm, right? And also it has ink, but if I keep using it, the ink will run out. It even has a button. So it has moving parts and components. So it's not devoid of occurrences and events. So the rule is whatever is not devoid of occurrences and events then cannot precede them. Take that rule there. If you didn't understand it now, just take it like I said and think about it. But it will be clear here, inshallah. The rule is, whatever is not devoid of events, of occurrences, like the example I just gave you, cannot precede them. It cannot exist before them. If it can't be devoid of occurrences, then it cannot exist before occurrences, right? That's very sound. So then, whatever cannot exist before an occurrence must itself be an occurrence. Whatever cannot exist before an event must itself be an event. Yani, whatever cannot exist before a creation must itself be a creation. So since it's confirmed that the attributes of the bodies are created, it is confirmed that the bodies themselves are created, because whatever cannot be devoid of events and occurrences, that means creations, then it cannot precede events and occurrences and creations. And whatever cannot precede, that means exist before events and occurrences and creations, then it must itself be an event and an occurrence and a creation. And if it is an event and an occurrence and a creation, then it's not the creator, it's not the eternal God. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala drew our attention to that. All of what we just said, Allah drew our attention to that in several ayahs of the Quran. Among them is what's in Surah Al-An'am, ayahs 75 through 83. I would have prepared all of them for you to read it all the way through. I had the time and I didn't forget, but I did leave them out for the sake of time to cover everything that we need to cover. It's not here in the book. He just gave us the reference. So, what is that in Surah Al-An'am verses 75 through 83? Those verses start with the saying of Allah, وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. It means, likewise, we, meaning Allah, showed Abraham the kingdom of heavens and earth so that he would be amongst the certain. And then from there it goes into the story of Prophet Ibrahim debating with his people about their star worship and their moon worship and their sun worship, and clarifying for them that they don't deserve worship. Those celestial bodies do not deserve worship because they change. Prophet Ibrahim said to them about the star, La uhibbul afilin, when the star set, when it went away. He said, La uhibbul afilin, I do not love what goes away. It means I don't worship what goes away. Okay, since you took the effort to post that, I'll read it for you then. Barakallahu fikum. Allah Ta'ala said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وكذلك نري إبراهيم ملكوت السماوات والأرض. And like that, there's something before what we're reciting. Allah showed Abraham the kingdom of heavens and earth. Some said it means that Allah gave Abraham a miracle and he split the seven heavens above Abraham and enabled him to look up until he saw the arsh itself, the ceiling of paradise. That's how some of them explained this. وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And some said it means Allah gave Prophet Ibrahim very, very acute intelligence, so fine that Abraham had a very distinct, fine, delicate perception of existence and reality. He had a lot of knowledge, very super advanced level. وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And like that, we, meaning Allah, showed Abraham the kingdom of heavens and earth. وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. And so that he would be amongst the certain. فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. Then when the night fell upon him, he saw a star. That was the star that they used to worship. قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. He said, this is my Lord. This is my Lord. This is not my Lord. This doesn't deserve to be worshipped. فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَا أُحِبُّ الْآفِلِينَ. And then when it went away, he said, I do not love what goes away. Meaning, I don't worship what changes. فَلَمَّا رَأَى الْقَمَرَ بَازِغًا قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. And then when he saw the moon, he said, this is my Lord. This moon that you worship unrightfully, this is not my Lord. فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَئِن لَّمْ يَهْدِنِي رَبِّي لَأَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الضَّالِّينَ. He said, if my Lord does not guide me, had it not been for the guidance of my Lord, then I would certainly be amongst the misguided people. فَلَمَّا رَأَى الشَّمْسَ بَازِغَةً قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. And then when he saw the sun that they worshipped, he said, this is my Lord. This is not my Lord. هذا أكبر. This is bigger. You worship a body that's comparable. It has a size. فلما أفلت قال يا قوم إني بريء مما تشركون. And then when the sun went away, he said, "Oh my people, I have nothing to do with what you associate with God." Etc. until the end. So that we have a lot to cover here, so I'm not going to go through all of that. Barakallahu fikum. So Prophet Ibrahim, this is, you just got a taste, an example of how was he talking to them. He was explaining to them. He was telling them, this is created, this thing here. It's in a place. It's comparable. It moves. It changes, just like we are talking. Allah Ta'ala said about Prophet Ibrahim's argumentation. وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ. That argumentation that Abraham gave, the argument that Abraham gave, mind you, he was not reading from a revealed book. He was talking to them. He was talking from his knowledge. Alayhi salatu wassalam. So he was giving them mental arguments. Allah says about Abraham's argumentation, وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ. That argument, we gave it to Abraham over his people or against his people. Allah gave Abraham that argument. Allah inspired him and gave him the knowledge to be able to construct such an argument. نَرُفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَّن نَّشَاءُ. We raise in status, we raise in ranks whomever we will. إِنَّ رَبَّكَ حَكِيمٌ عَلِيمٌ. Certainly your Lord is wise and knowledgeable. So, in this ayah, in these verses, Abraham inferred from the changing of the stars and the sun and the moon that they are created and they don't deserve to be worshipped. This is evidence for Ahlul Sunnah, not evidence for Mushabbiha. A Wahhabi has nothing to do with these ayahs. Nothing. He doesn't even know what in the world is going on there other than what appears, what his eyes run over. Also, in another ayah, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave this way of inference and argumentation. When he said, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. That's Surah Al-Imran, ayah 190. It means, certainly in the creation of heavens and earth, and in the variance of night and day, there are certainly signs for the intellectuals, for those who have intellects. لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ, for those who possess minds. There are signs in the creation of heavens and earth and in the variance of the night and the day. There are certainly signs for those who have intellects. And also Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, that starts at ayah 163 and goes to ayah 164. The meaning here is, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, certainly in the creation of heavens and earth, وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ, and in the variance of the night and the day, وَالْفُلْكِ الَّتِي تَجْرِي فِي الْبَحْرِ, and in the ships that run through the sea, بِمَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسِ, carrying what benefits the people, وَمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مِن مَاءٍ, and what Allah brings down from the sky of water. فَأَحْيَا بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا, and then he revives the earth after it died. وَبَثَّ فِيهَا مِن كُلِّ دَابَّةٍ, and he spread throughout the earth every sort of beast. وَتَصْرِيفِ الرِّيَاحِ, and in the fluctuation of the winds. وَالسَّحَابِ الْمُسَخَّرِ بَيْنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ, and in the cloud that is subjugated between heavens and earth. لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. In all of that, there are signs for a people who use their minds. There are signs for people who rationalize. So that's the first point of belief of Ahlus Sunnah that our author here, Abu al-Muzaffar, mentions. Any question? He said, is this mental evidence Prophet Ibrahim used? Absolutely, that's mental evidence. So the second point here, that's the creed of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, is that you know that the creation must indubitably have a creator, because the bodies, had they been existing by themselves independently without anything to create them, then they would not have varied. They wouldn't have been different. They wouldn't have been existing with different qualities, existing at different times and having different circumstances and being in different spots and different places, having different colors and different sizes and etc. Had they been existing without someone to create them, then none of them would have been different from the others. Rather, the fact that they are different, the fact that we see, for example, here's a laptop, here's a microphone, here's a couch, here's a fan, here's a book, here's a shoe. The fact that all these things are different means there must have been a specifier for them. A specifier that made something exist before something else. And he made something exist after something else. And he specified each thing with what it has. Had it not been for that, then nothing would be different from anything else. Because a possibility is something that could exist, it might exist or it might not exist, right? So existence for a possibility is not more likely than non-existence for a possibility. Being big is not more likely than being small. Moving is not more likely than being still. All of those are possibilities. And so then when a thing gets one possible quality instead of another, then there must have been a specifier for that thing. And Allah Ta'ala drew our attention to that also in his book when he says in Surah Tur, At-Tur, the mountain, Ayah 35, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. It means, are they created without anything that created them? Or are they the creators? Its meaning is, are they created and don't have a creator? Meaning, the meaning of this question, are they created without something that created them? It means they are created, So how could it be that they don't have something that created them? That's the meaning of the ayah. They are created. So how would it be that there was not one who created them? Am khuliqu min ghayri shay'? Were they created without anything to create them? So what that means is they have the qualities of createdness. They have createdness about them. They are different colors and different shapes and different forms, etc., etc. So they have createdness. So would they be created and there's nothing that created them? Am humul khaliqun, or are they the creators? That's in the Quran. So the meaning is that would they be created without a creator? Yani, they have created attributes and that's confirmed. So then there must be a creator. That's Surah Tur, T-U-R, At-Tur, Ayah 35. So it's impossible that a thing would be definitively created. A thing would have createdness about it, and there wouldn't be a creator. And that you know that the creator of the creation is eternal. Because had the creator been created, then he would need a creator. And then that would be the same judgment for the second one and the third one. Then that would be the judgment for the second one and the third one. If the creator were created, he would need a creator. So then that second one, if he's created, then he needs a creator. And then that third one, if he's created, then he needs a creator. And then you would go on forever into the past. And we know that a beginningless chain is impossible. Remember that. Just say those words, inshallah. That's easy to understand. A beginningless chain is impossible. Not an endless chain. An endless chain is not impossible. A beginningless chain is impossible. Of events, I mean, a chain of events. And if there were a beginningless chain of creators, then the existence of the creator and the existence of the creation would both be impossible. And this argument is also taken from the Quran. Allah says in Surah Al-Hadid, Ayah 3, هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن وهو بكل شيء عليم. He is the first, that means the only one who has no beginning, and the last, that means the one who exists without an end, eternally exists without an end, and al-Zahir, that means the one whose existence is obvious, and he is al-Batin, that means the one who cannot be imagined. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ, and he is about everything knowledgeable. And so here in this verse, Allah clarified that he existed before anything that could be referred to as an event or a creation. And Allah said, Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 255, that's Ayatul Kursi, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. No one is God but Allah. He is Al-Hayy, the living, the alive one, and Al-Qayyum. And Al-Qayyum means the one who has qiyam. Qiyam means existence and confirmation. And qayyum, in fact, is an amplified form from that. So it's emphatic. So it means then the one who is attributed with existence absolutely. Yani, without a beginning and without an end, I mean. And you need to know then that it is not valid that the Creator be described with non-existence at all. Because what we have now just described is the real meaning of being eternal. And this also came in the hadith, كَانَ اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يَكُمْ مَعَهُ شَيْءٍ. Allah existed and there was nothing with him. So this necessitates that he existed eternally and everlastingly. And let's stop there, insha'Allah ta'ala. I'd like to let that soak in for you, insha'Allah.